Hello and welcome to Did You Say That Out Loud? This is Marette and I'll be spending a few minutes with friends and we're going to chat about life and kids and friends and travel and crazy topics and a few memories. So I can guarantee that you will laugh and you may learn a few things about what brings people together and what keeps them connected in their relationships and their faith walk. Hope you enjoy. So, good morning. I am with my friend Ruth Picker, and we are sitting in your living room, and you have Christmas decorations set up. You could have a 9-foot tree here, though, really.
We could.
You could.
Sometimes I have it over there, and we couldn't there. So.
That's true.
And besides, we bought this one at Menards for $20 after the season one year, so it's the size it is.
So before we were going to take down our front room, I went out on faith and bought an 8-foot, or is it 9-foot tree. In faith, believing Jim would we could do it, because then we were making a vaulted ceiling. So yeah, we went and bought this tree before we took down the walls to do it, and that's faith.
Yeah.
It's kind of faith. I love Christmas. Now you have stockings by your fireplace, grandchildren stockings?
Yes, the 8 small ones in the middle are theirs, and the large ones are for the adults. So all the adult stuff is not too much rhyme or reason to those two. Just we've had that big one there since before the kids were born.
It looks like it could stretch a long ways.
Yeah, I think a supplier for Carrie's job gave that to us one year. Probably had something in it. I don't really remember. And so that's what we had at first. It was just kind of for the two of us. But then after the kids came, we started putting things in those. We didn't really have little stockings for our kids.
One of the things I did last year, I'm unmotivated this year, but last year I made stockings and I figured out how to do them make 2 stockings, sew them together and flip them, the one inside. So it's, and then I filled it and then I gave it away with a paper and a writing that this was for them to enjoy this year. And then next year they would fill it and give it away. And I had somebody send me a note last week asking if I had the little cute thing I wrote because they couldn't find theirs. And I'm going, I have no clue. But I enjoyed that kind of thing because we didn't grow up with Christmas traditions like that. We didn't grow up with a tree. Grandma had a tree. But so to me, we didn't also have a fireplace. We didn't have a mantle. We have a fake one now, but it's kind of, so you just have your fire going with the socks there?
No, we hardly ever turn it on because it makes the lower level so cold when we have it on. So if I'm home by myself, sometimes I turn it on.
I love a fire.
But we can't turn it on when the stockings are there because part of what's in it is chocolate.
Okay.
And it would be pretty runny. So.
It would be, that would be an interesting looking toe of every sock. So what kind of traditions did you grow up with in Christmas that had meaning to you, that were fun to remember?
Well, one of the things that was really interesting, we were a preacher's family, so we had the Christmas program and then we carried the tree from the sanctuary up into our little apartment, and the gifts that would be under it were not a lot, but we would always get a gift from this lady that was not married in our church, and she was a sister of a missionary in South Africa, and she, I think, really longed to be able to give gifts to children. So mostly what she gave us were beautiful books, and they'd have the little pop-up in it, or sometimes famous stories, and we really look forward to that. And then now that I've got grandchildren, I started a tradition when Luke was a baby. So I just had the 2 at that time, and I do the 12 days of Christmas, which they start on December 1st, and every other day they open a little gift to kind of help them remember the real reason for Christmas. But I didn't know I was going to get 8 of them, so 8 times 12 is 96.
Yeah.
And so it's getting interesting. But now This year, 2 of them will be graduated from high school, and then I do something different for them. The little ones, it's really fun because they like anything. They like a little craft or a book or, just an ornament. But when you're a 17-year-old boy, you don't really want to make a craft anymore. So this year, the one that's going into college next year, I gave him some things for his room.
Well,
in college.
that's logical.
And then I've told them when they graduate, that's going to be
They're
the
done.
cutoff point.
We would go to Grandma's. Grandma lived in the same farm as us, and I remember one year, Grandma had little tiny walnuts hanging on her little tiny cardboardish,
Cute.
and my brother, and then there was a name, like a name, so you could see whose name was on each walnut. And one of my brothers, won't name his name, I don't like walnuts. That's dumb.
Oh,
So my other brother, who was smarter, so I'll take your walnut. And then when we opened our walnuts, there was $5, which was huge.
yes.
And then my other brother decided he'd like his
kind
walnut
of
back.
likes walnuts all of a sudden.
And we didn't really do a lot of Christmas stuff. In '64, my father was in a helicopter crash, and so we went south for the winter, and then did that quite a few other times. But we would get usually one gift, and then on our trip we could choose one souvenir. And my doll, I got a doll, and I left it in a hotel room somewhere in Tennessee, and it cost my mother as much money to get it off the train in West Concord as it cost to buy. I remember that. And I kind of always thought of that as the redeeming factor of who Jesus is.
Yes.
Is he redeemed it, and we had to redeem my doll. And that was quite
well, and that she would do that and not just say, that's the end of the
that's the end of the doll. Yeah, well, I think, we stayed in hotels and blankets get thrown and So anyway, so what kind of foods are tradition in your Christmas?
Well, that's an interesting question. I can think of a lot for Thanksgiving. I don't know that we had a particular menu, but the thing that I do remember most is that my dad, who was the big holiday cook at our house, would make a lot of different kinds of candy. He'd be busy, weeks before making all the different ones. And the one I remember the most was this kind of a white divinity, had a little bit of nuts in it, really good. But he made fudge and peanut butter fudge and just about everything you could imagine.
We do the real thin Christmas cookies. We did a bunch last week because we had Cowboy Church and we provided snacks for that. But so Bailey came out and another friend, and we, just cooked and made a lot of the pretzel stuff and a lot of snacky stuff. And other than relish was the only other tradition, cranberry relish.
Oh, I make that.
Yep. And and I love it. I'm the only one in my family that likes it, so I eat it because I love it.
And it keeps a long time. It's almost like
it's actually healthy if you don't put all the
Yes.
sugar in. It's cranberries and apples and oranges.
And I put tiny little bit of celery and about 2 tablespoons of really finely cut onion. It gives it just a little savory, and then walnuts.
Oh,
So it has all the textures.
I'm gonna add the
Yeah.
walnuts. Not sure about the onions, but I'll add the walnuts. Cooking tips with Ruth.
And then when I eat it, I put just a little salt on the top because it brings out the savory part of it.
Do you add sugar to it?
Yeah, I do. And I have used like stevia sometimes too, especially if I have somebody that's going to have, a health issue.
So how old is your relisher? I don't know what you call it. The grinder?
Oh, it's not very. I use my food processor now, but I used to have my mom's grinder, and I don't know what happened to that.
I have the grinder that we grew up with, and everybody makes fun of me because I think it's an old sausage meat grinder.
Yeah, I think mine was too.
And it's old, and it doesn't work, and you got to put a pan on the floor to catch the drippings anyway.
And my counter isn't the right height for it anymore. I could not get it screwed tight enough.
Yeah.
So I think I might have sold that at Michelle Larson's
Well, when we
garage
moved,
sale.
I think when we moved Grandpa out of the trailer and we went through all these cupboards, we found another one. So now I
Oh,
have
yeah.
two very old, useless grinders, but they are kind of unique.
Yes.
They're definitely unique.
They're
You
probably
raised.
worth a lot.
Well, I did find one at a like an antique store one day for $15. So I'm not
So
sure.
not yet.
Although mine is rusty, that might make it worth more.
Yeah.
'Cause
Well, give it to one of your girls. They might.
oh, they'll
Another
laugh at me.
generation.
Yeah,
they-
it could become the white elephant gift.
It could.
It could.
That would be
With
fun.
all the little metal discs. So you raised three boys. What
Yes.
did you learn raising three boys?
Well, they don't whine very much like girls do, and mine were pretty easy. They really were compliant. They had jobs. I had a neighbor call me one time and said, "How do you get your kids to bring their dishes over after a meal?" And I said, "Well, first of all, you have to get your husband to do it so that they see the example." But I said they've just always done it since they can remember, So when Greg went off to college, I realized how hard it was to scrub floors because that was the job he liked, and he always scrubbed my floors for me. And they just had their list of things, mow the lawn, whatever. So they were pretty easy. I learned that they don't always tell you what they're thinking. There's a lot of stuff inside more than you probably would get with girls, or maybe not, maybe just their personalities. Their dad's kind of like that.
I was going to say, it could be a quiet father is quiet children.
Yeah.
So you have taught in education your whole life.
Yes.
Tell how it started.
I don't know if I can remember how it started. I remember my sisters, when their feet did not touch the floor yet, in the little desks we had gotten from a closing one-room school room. And they were all connected together, and there was one way in to sit at them. And I would stand on the side that they could get out until they finished the workbook pages that I gave them so they could read before they went to school. And I was pretty little, too, because there's 2 years between me and Mary, and 3.5 between me and Lois. So they were really little.
You cracked the whip at a young age.
Yes. And then the next thing was to have backyard vacation Bible school, and I worked on that all year long. All the neighbor kids came, and I did that between probably when I was maybe 10 and 13 probably. And we moved in between that, so I had 2 different neighborhoods of kids.
So when did you know that you wanted to do it farther down your life?
In 3rd grade, I had a kind of a quirky, wonderful teacher, and we just learned so many fun things. And she wanted to challenge me, so she had me stay after school and tutor a little girl named Donna Harrison. I wonder whatever happened to her. But anyway, I think if she was alive today, well, maybe she is, I don't know. But if this was happening today, that she would probably be diagnosed with ADHD and maybe autism. And she just was not progressing very well. So I was to help her with spelling. And I remember one week she actually got her spelling test 100%, and she was like she didn't know what was happening, but I had this feeling in my heart of this is what it could be like to teach, So I never looked back from it, and whatever I do really is involved with teaching, even if it's not a professional.
Did you teach
job.
in the high school level?
Only a little bit. One semester in Altoona, Wisconsin, I had 9th and 10th grade. And then I subbed when we first moved to Rochester. We moved in November, so I couldn't get a job. And so I subbed in the public schools, and I had mostly middle school and high school. but I never thought I would teach college. When I was doing my master's degree, my thesis advisor said, I wish you were getting a different degree than I was getting, because I think you really are going to teach at the college level. And I said, oh no, I'm going to teach 9th and 10th grade. That's my area. And he just kind of smiled. And then at one point I was teaching in 2 colleges at the same time, and I wish I could find him. He's probably long gone.
So what is one of the, I mean, there's aha moments when you're teaching and you watch people's eyes. Because the eyes, I think, you can tell if a person's engaged or in la la land, even though they're looking at you both with the eyes. What are some aha moments that you noticed when you were teaching, that the kids really picked up the bigger concept, not just, 4 + 4 is 8, but the bigger concepts?
Well, probably the most touching moment in my life teaching was I was teaching a Foundations of Education class. I had a Master of Arts in Teaching, so I could teach education stuff too. And I had a really big class, and they were a little bit harder to manage than some that I've had. I was teaching one day about different kinds of intelligence, and the source that I was using said that there were 8 kinds. I think there are more, but one of the kinds of intelligence is kinesthetic intelligence, and that's movement, And so I was talking about how some of you are athletically intelligent, and some of you need to move in order to learn things, and that's a kind of intelligence that isn't always revered very much by teachers. And one of those great big athletes started crying. Oh, and I thought, what have I mean, this seems pretty academic. What have I said? And so after class, I went up to him and I said, are you okay? And he said, yes. He said, this is the first time anyone has ever told me I was intelligent.
Oh, wow.
Then I cried. So yeah, there have been some moments like that where I'm real audience driven, probably to a fault, because there's kind of 3 parts to being a good teacher. There's the subject, and there's the audience, and there's the person that's teaching. But I'm real audience driven, so if I don't have response from my audience, it's really hard for me to teach. I could never just be a lecturer teacher. I have to have that give and take.
Did you ever do like recorded teachings or like the Zoom stuff?
Yes, quite a lot of that, and I don't love it. In fact, I had said at one point, if I ever have to teach to a microphone, I'm done. But then, of course,
and COVID.
I did it for years. Oh. Well, long before COVID, because we started the online classes and the adult completion classes, and but it can still be quite engaged if you set it up so that you're having, give and take. If that was the only way I'd ever teach, and if the only way I'd ever taught, I don't know that I would have lasted, though. Maybe. It's an interesting question.
Well, and to me, anytime you deal with people, the feedback is the relationship.
Yes.
And I am relational driven. I think people are, God made us relational driven. Mm-hmm. And so to speak to an empty audience, an empty room, or empty eyes, it's like, did I get across? And then you wonder, you question your topic and yourself, because your audience is not giving you any kind of feedback.
Yeah.
But I sat through seminars that had nothing to do with me, but I had to sit through them. And I developed I am thrilled and enthralled at what you're saying, but I was thousands of miles away. Yeah. So, perhaps people do that to me because I've done it a few times. But it's interesting because teaching is such a wonderful way to change people's lives when you get the relationship. I think there almost has to be a relationship.
Zoom is better than just online teaching because you can see each other.
Right.
And that I did quite a bit of tutoring during COVID with Friendship Place that I volunteer at, and really made some lasting relationships through that with a little refugee family from Kenya and some other kids with second language, and so it's a tool. I mean, you can teach all over the world.
Yep.
So.
And it's rewarding when people come back to you years later.
Yeah.
And I know a couple of years ago we delivered some meals, and it was the Valentine thing when everything was crazy, and one of the meals I took was to an old teacher. Drove up to Kenya, and it's those relationships when you see people. And of course, I'm back where I kind of grew up, so that ability to see people is much higher than people who've moved around. But so last question. I don't know how much you and Carrie have traveled, but what is two of the coolest places you've ever visited?
Well, he wasn't with me when I went to Israel. He was in the hospital with a kidney stone. But that was probably the coolest place I ever went. We have not done a lot of traveling, but probably Washington, D.C.
Where do you want to go back to? I've always said the world is so big that if I go someplace, I'm probably not coming back to it unless it is mesmerizing.
Yeah.
And when we were in Australia, I told Adley, we're flying over the outback because I'm not coming back. We're here. We're going to do it. I will go back to Ireland. Yeah. Loved it. But there's so many places in the United States that I do want to see that I haven't.
We're going to do an Alaskan cruise in July. That'll be our first really big trip. We went to Colorado for our honeymoon, and that was kind of interesting because it was a surprise to me. I didn't know where we were going. We drove and drove and drove the first night and stayed overnight in Albert Lea, and I'm thinking, is this it?
Is this Albert Lea? Excitement.
People might listen from Albert Lea. I don't mean to be trashing your town, but it wasn't my idea of a honeymoon trip. And then we went to Colorado Springs, and we had a lot of fun there. I guess maybe I would go back there. My grandson might go to college, or I don't know, but he's looked at some colleges in Colorado, so maybe we'll go there again. But I don't know. I'm not one to usually go back a lot of times. I've gone to Texas a few times because I have relatives there. But what we'd like to do, if we live long enough and can save up enough money, is a river cruise in Europe and kind of go through a number of countries. So I probably would have liked to have traveled more than we have, but life has been pretty full where we are.
And I know one time somebody said, traveling is incredible, but know where you live. Because a lot of people, I lived on 57 north of Manorville my whole life. Okay. And one day I told Grandma, we're going to go to the Swiss Fest. The Swiss Fest was a mile up the road. People came from all around the world to go to the Swiss Fest, and we had never gone to the Swiss Fest. Yep. We went, and we came home and said, we went. Because it didn't, but sometimes you miss the things that are all around you because it's more cooler to go on a trip instead of exploring the community. So, well, thank you for visiting. This has been a wonderful morning.